This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 198.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. The world we're living in today, at least at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs, unfortunately. And since then, people have gone back to work. But there's still many people that I know that I work with, maybe I don't know, that are trying to find jobs as well. So today I talked to a hiring manager or an SE manager, Justin Hammond. We talked about his journey, sure, going from sales into sales engineering and leadership. But we also dig in a little bit more about the interview process. What are his thoughts as a hiring manager and throughout the sales or the interview process about how they can hire someone, make sure they're open and honest and not ghosting people, which sometimes happens, sometimes it doesn't. So we talk a lot about that sort of aspect of sales engineering or just job finding, job hunting in general, as a sales engineer manager though. So let me know what you guys think. I'm excited to talk to Justin, so let's just jump into the show and we'll talk after. Good morning, Justin. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Ramsey?
I'm doing well. Every time I look at your name, I see Justin Hammer. I don't know why.
Well, that's what they called me in high school.
Oh, that's what you were called in high school?
Sometimes. I had a lot of names, but that was one of them.
I was called Grizzly. I think Hammer would have been nicer, but all right, so let's get started before I derail this call. Who are you? What are you doing here? How did you get to where you are today?
Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah, I'll go away, grab some coffee.
I'll start with my name. I'm Justin Hammond. I'm the manager of the solutions engineers at Civic Plus. Civic Plus does software solutions for local government, specifically in the United States, Canada, and Australia. But how did I get here? Again, pretty long story, but graduated college, started, got a job to make ends meet, ended up being my career in retail sales, retail management, and then transitioned to outside sales within that same company, Verizon, if anyone's wanting to keep track of that. And then a few years later, was recruited by Civic Plus, started there as an outside regional salesperson. And about 4.5 years ago, transitioned into the SE role.
When you were recruited into Civic Plus, did you ever ask them what did they see in you? Because it doesn't seem like they're the same type of industry or business, going from like communications. I think, assuming you're selling cell phones and cell phone plans and stuff like that, to software. What?
Yeah, good question. So I had a connection with Civic Plus that I wasn't aware of. So when they reached out with the typical LinkedIn, hey, how you doing? Are you interested? I hesitantly reached out because I'd worked for Verizon for quite a while, 10 years to be exact, and it was the only professional career I had. And so it was a time for me to look elsewhere. I mean, it's the first and only LinkedIn request that I accepted from a recruiter. But quickly realized an ex-manager that I had loved working with at Verizon was working here. So they saw what they had seen in me before and recruited me through that. And so it was fast and furious. I don't think it's anyone's experience from a recruiter reaching out on LinkedIn to be so quick, but it moved really rapidly. I was working here before I had realized what I had done. But just kind of an ex-manager with a previous relationship, essentially.
Okay. How did you transition from? So I'm trying to read your. So what were you selling at Verizon Wireless?
Yeah. So most of my career was in retail, but from an outside sales rep perspective, we sold cell phones and plans, but we also sold machine-to-machine solutions. Okay. And so that's any you're probably familiar with it, but any type of cellular connectivity device within a water meter, drones, different things like that for monitoring, essentially. So I really got my first taste of basically understanding complex problems and complex solutions through Verizon. And we worked with a solutions architect, which was kind of their version of a sales engineer, to help us with that, because there's literally thousands of different products, right? What we benefited as at Verizon was the connectivity, the connection, and then the customers just benefited from that being available anywhere and everywhere. No Wi-Fi network, nothing, no Zigbee network that they had to run, essentially cellular. So I took that knowledge and from there moved into a SaaS position here at Civic Plus, which on the surface is quite a bit different, but the exercise is the same. Chatting with the customer, understanding their problems, and then delivering that right solution.
So how would you go about, as a sales engineer, when you move from company to company, even if it's different industry, you kind of focus on the technology and you're just doing that, what problems it solve and all that. As a regional salesperson, what was the onboarding process like? Did you have time to study the product, or did they just send you out and ask you to start selling, or maybe somewhere in between?
A little bit of both. I mean, when I started at Civic Plus 7.5 years ago, we had, I'm going to call it 2.5 products. I mean, we had 3 products, but one had kind of just got kicked off. Now we have dozens, and dozens with bolt-ons, and that change the way it behaves and can add so much value. So the onboarding has to be a little bit more regimented. But then it was, I would say that my biggest struggle was learning how to sell into local government. That is above and beyond, I think, the biggest change that for me transitioning here. It wasn't necessarily the software, the solution. I picked that stuff up really quickly, and I think that's just a personal strength of mine. But really understanding how local government buys or evaluates solutions.
I'm looking at your title from Verizon Wireless. I mean, you used to work with business and government accounts.
Yeah.
Now you're working with local government. How is that different from like government accounts, and why did you have to learn that?
Yeah, it wasn't different other than, I live in Kansas, so I understand. I've lived in Kansas my entire life. They operate a certain way with a certain governmental structure in both cities and counties. You take that and translate that into how Massachusetts operates local government, or Texas, or California. It is, first you have to understand who's in charge, who's writing the checks, but then how do they make those decisions is vastly different. They have different buying requirements or processes they have to follow, and so then that is coupled on top of understanding that problem and delivering that solution, because they can look at you right in the eye and go, you have everything we want, but we can't choose you for whatever reason, right? Mostly price. It's a hard pill to swallow when we might be coming in at twice the price of some low-cost local competitor, when we've solved all their problems. But it's just how they buy.
Yeah. And so what you're saying is that, if I understand correctly, just because you're working with local governments doesn't mean they have the same needs, wants, or ways of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, they may, but ultimately it comes down to a process of buying, and things can just be derailed randomly through personalities or previous relationships within those organizations, and sometimes you don't get that full story. They'll guard the gatekeeper the decision maker and the economic buyer a lot more effectively, I should say, than maybe a private business.
Okay. And so you learned that. What enticed you to go into sales engineering?
Well, when I worked at Verizon, our solutions architect there was really fun to work with. In fact, he made it easy for me to include him on deals and bring him in. And so seeing the technology side, which has always attracted me, and how he would take that seemingly super complicated information, that solution, and make it fun and easy to understand, and really even pepper in great questions to help me as a salesperson move that deal forward. I had already had interest in that before I left Verizon. When I came on board with Civic Plus, I didn't realize that type of position existed, that it was really, somewhat at that point globally recognized as a great way to help a salesperson bring a deal in. Right. And so I met our sales engineers at the time, worked with them closely, and then just found an opportunity to switch. It was first a pay cut. It was, it was a different environment at the time, but I love it. And I feel like it brings me that opportunity to kind of be more flexible as an employee. And the fact that it's not really as a defined position across the world, I enjoyed trying to solve problems for how that would work best here at Civic Plus, or best with the market that we're in, or best with the solutions that we have. So yeah, it was something of interest, hopped into it and fell in love with it.
That's very interesting. You mentioned that it made it easy for you to include that solutions architect into your calls. A lot of times I talk to salespeople who are afraid to bring their SEs into calls because they're afraid they might ruin the deal. What was so special about that SE? Did you work with any other SEs, and what differentiated, or I guess SCs? I don't know.
Yeah, we had different levels at Verizon. Yeah, it was an SAA, a solutions architect there, but yeah, we had different levels. So I had worked with a few that regionally supported us. The one I'm specifically speaking of was local, right? So within an hour of where I worked, and would often tag team, but he supported, I think, 4 or 5 teams, maybe less, but dozens of people. And so I rarely got a chance to work with him as often as I would like. But his personality, I mean, honestly, you could probably point at him as the reason why this attracted to me so much, because he came in, and as a salesperson, there's this degree of I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to ruin this relationship. I have to be careful what I say. I have to make sure that I'm, making the proper next steps and to advance the sale. Right. And he'd come in there and I'll just display it in body language. He's just like, yeah, how can we solve your problems? Right. And and he had permission to do that, right? Because he was the unknown that came in and is like, hey, I'm Will. And he would just kind of spitball and do all this stuff. And so he had a sales background as well. And it just worked for him. He could say things that I would never dream of saying. And I'm sitting there scratching my head. He would. So I don't, to this day, I still don't know if he knows how to pronounce the caveat. So he'll say the caviar to that is, or he'll say the 100-pound gorilla in the room, which, that's normally the 500-pound. So just random stuff that's kind of like, I think it put people on their back heels and, disarmed them and made the conversation go so much better when he would just, so yeah, just random stuff like that. And I'd be scratching my head because they'd be cracking up and I'm like, I couldn't pull that off. So yeah. that attracted me to the position. And I try to do that with my sales team now.
Why do you think you couldn't pull it off? Like, is it just because you're in sales, or
it's probably yeah, a little bit of both. Probably a little bit of myself just kind of worried about how they might take that. And there's a little bit of risk on kind of looking dumb or sounding dumb in my mind. And I wanted to keep that level of professionalism, and he would just kind of just teeter that on the edge and open up the conversation. So it just worked.
It's funny. My salesperson back in the day would insist on explaining my jokes to my customers, especially like new ones, because I used to joke around and I have a dry humor, so I don't smile or whatever. Yeah. But everybody would laugh. They would assume it's a joke, and he would have to emphasize, "Oh, he's joking. Don't worry. He meant this." Like, yeah, I think they got it. They're laughing. Don't worry so much. But I think that's also because we don't have so much on the line, maybe.
Yeah.
essentially as
I
SEs.
think we have permission to go there as an SE team, and we're not insulting them or going to that degree, but it's you get a little more latitude as an SE, uh, and the customers give that to you as well because it might be your first time meeting, and so you get to open up that relationship, and then you're including that AE, right? You grab them by the shoulder metaphorically, right? Bring them in and say, okay, we're all friends here. Let's talk.
Yeah, yeah, you're giving credibility to.
Yeah.
I think John Kerr wrote that in one of his books, where SEs have the ability to give that credibility to their salespeople,
Yep.
and if they don't, they're doing it wrong, unless it's
Yeah.
a very non-credible salesperson.
Right.
All right, so when you moved from sales to SE, a lot of times people like I've worked with SEs who look across the table and say like, I can do that salesperson's job better than he can or she can. And I get the feeling that a lot of salespeople complain about like, oh, this SE is not doing their job properly, even though they don't know what's happening. What did you, since you bridged that gap, what did you see in terms of relationships? Anything surprised you about what SEs do or salespeople do not know about sales engineers?
Yeah. And that may have helped me here at Civic Plus because I had a lot of existing relationships within the sales team. So I can tell that story, and I absolutely have tried. So have you been in management or leadership before, Ramsey?
Not officially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and it's an interesting thing. And it's kind of like being a parent. You realize a lot of things that your parents did or said to you, are how the ways you explain things now, but your kids aren't going to get it. So as a manager, you explain things to your direct reports and your team, and they don't get it, but they kind of nod and follow along, and then they become managers and go, oh, okay, yeah. And so it kind of, I would say those are all similar. Now, obviously being a parent's quite a bit more of a commitment than than any given job. But I guess my point is
You can't fire
there's a
your
lot.
children.
No, you can't. No. So, but I think you learn a lot about what the other half does. And when I was not a manager, I wondered what my manager did in his office all day. And then I became a manager and I was in my office all day. And so, yes, I learned a lot. And I've tried to express that back to my AEs that, the difference between, and this super simplifying it, so don't take this the wrong way, but the difference between an AE and an SE sometimes is the amount of time dedicated to learning the product or demoing the product, right? Sometimes the AEs can demo a product, at least here, and they're pretty effective at it. But they are cold calling, they're moving deals forward, they're trying to progress the sale, they're trying to put in next steps and all these things. They're demoing about a third of the time, if less, if not less, than any given SE on my team. And so we're strengthening that muscle every single day, whether that's, and I say demo, so I will say demo a lot, Ramsey. I mean meetings, right? So we try to be involved as many times throughout the process as we can. But in any event, I try to explain that back to the AE team, like, hey, listen, we're here. It's not about what you can do and can't do. It's about what we can do together. And I've tried to tell that story since I started.
Yeah. I noticed the big difference between SEs and AEs is just the chunks of time that they work. I find that AEs work in like 5-minute chunks where they're calling this person, they hang up, they maybe write the notes, call the next person, call the next person. They may have half-hour meetings, hour-long meetings, whatever. But SEs, they tend to work in half-hour to hour chunks depending on the company they work for.
Yep.
And like, let's say we need to prepare for a demo. We're taking half hour, whereas the AE is expecting us to do a million things in that half hour because that's how they work. And that's what I try to explain to AEs versus SEs. Right?
That's a great point.
One thing I saw, so I've told the story before, but my AE set up a demo for me, and it was like in a couple of days with a customer, and he provided no information. And so I called up the customer, had a good relationship with the customer, and I said, hey, can we push it out one day? And I used that time that was already scheduled for me to come in and do a chat with you to understand what we're doing, especially since you mentioned you want an interop between our product and yours. It's like, yeah, sure, let's do that. I told my AE, like, it's just pushed out one day, it's not delaying the sales, whatever. I showed up, nothing was working on their end. So if I were to do a demo that day with them, nothing would have worked. and I would have been blamed because in the moment, it's always the outsider's fault.
That's right.
Anyways, so I did another discovery, figured out what they needed, went and worked for a couple hours. So that's like 4 hours of work within one afternoon to figure out that we can't do it, do a discovery, go back home, prepare a demo flow, and show up the next day and do a flawless demo. We walk out of that call. My salesperson was on his email in the middle of the call. He would just pop out every few minutes and say, "What do you guys think?" And then we walked out and it's like, "Ramsey, the demo, it was just a few clicks. Why didn't you do it yesterday?" And I think that's the big difference. But salespeople don't know about SEs. They don't know about all the work that goes behind it. The same way SEs don't know about all the calls the salesperson had to go and call that customer to set up one meeting.
It's layered, yeah. And I think the other part that you probably know about but aren't mentioning is about the experience too with the client or the prospect, right? So they feel better that you're talking about a solution in their terms, in their world, right? And so it is about taking them through that journey, because they'll feel a lot more part of that process than if you come in and, just an old sales term, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, right? So it is a matter of saying, hey, when you said this is what I was talking about, right? This is the solution that I was saying would take that away.
Yeah. So how have you seen like your experience as a salesperson and then as an SE? How did it enable you to work better with your account team, like in terms of like strategies during calls or outside of calls? How did that help in any way, if it did?
I think it helped a lot, and I don't want to put anybody in a box or say that anyone from a particular set of work history can or can't do what I do, right? But I do believe that understanding the pressures that they're under, right? So we see it all the time, and you talk about it. Oh, the AEs, they're lazy, or what, they show up 3 minutes before the call and expect take it away. And I understand that, and it's not great being on those calls, right? When you know they're checked out, they're on mute, they aren't participating in the process. Sometimes it's fear, but just understanding that. And then when we do our pre-call, so the prep call before the demo, I have asked a lot of detailed questions, but my main is like, what is my role? Like, what are they interested in? What do they know? What are their problems? And what's my role? Because sometimes I may just be there as backup, right? They're performing the demo and I can chime in. Other times it is hey, this is Justin. He's going to take the call from here. Okay. Yeah, I guess I am. Well, I should come off mute and then, kind of go that way. And again, it could be someone new that's not comfortable. They don't know that recapping, basic things that we talked about in front of the customers is important, things like that.
On the flip side, I've been in meetings where it's supposed to be a demo or discovery, and the salesperson ends up talking for 45 minutes, and now you have 5 minutes to do your magic, and it's like it never works. It's just been horrible. So I take that person who says, "All right, Ramsey, take over." Like within like 2 minutes of the call, it's like, "All right, good, I got this. I have the presentation ready to. This is what my salesperson said that you said. Is it still accurate? Like I have that ready." So versus
that's almost easier sometimes than when they are talking for 53 minutes and then they go, "Oh, Justin, can you do that one thing that I can, but I'm not sure they're going to remember it." But and it's an interesting thing. So strength, weakness, whatever you want to call it, I think just having an understanding of maybe what be motivating that, and then holding folks accountable. We're empowered here to provide that feedback, and we're expected to, and we work with the sales leadership team to make sure that every opportunity, every call is optimized. Now, it's not perfect, but I having that background has given me permission and latitude to really say things that I don't think other SEs maybe feel comfortable saying.
Why do you think they don't feel comfortable saying?
Well, I've listened to many of your podcasts, and I know we all kind of agree and joke around like, "Oh, I could do the AE's job," but do you apply, right? Like I don't have a lot of the SEs that say that or think that apply, because they know the pressures behind that. So I truly understand that, and I also know that it's probably not quite as stressful and pressure ridden as everyone says and thinks, right? Everyone's job is to oversell their problems and the solutions they can bring to the table. But I've walked it, right? And I know what it feels like on the 28th of the month and your boss is bringing it down your neck and you really need this deal to close. I don't want to stand in your way. I don't want to be the reason why you feel like that I got pushed or lost or anything like that.
So, okay, if let's say it's the 28th and the deal hasn't closed yet, what's the SE got to do with it? Like, if the SE is still involved, would it close by the 30th?
Yeah, usually not. Yeah, I mean, realistically, no. And then I guess I use that as just as a way to say, you know, as they approach the end of the month, right? And so it's just about kind of understanding what's going through their head in any given moment, right? And that's my point. Yeah,
Okay.
You can't close a deal in a couple of days usually from demo.
Yeah. So you mentioned demo, and you mentioned salespeople do demos and SE do demos. So a couple of questions around that. What's the difference, and when is it appropriate for SEs to do the demo or the AEs to do the demo versus the SE to do the demo?
We're growing our team this year. I would say that the biggest difference for us in the past has been availability. We have had 4 SEs across different products, mind you. So any given SE may not be able to help everyone because of the product knowledge they have versus the product knowledge the AE needs. But we would not be able to be on every discovery, let alone every demo for every meeting. So sometimes it's just a matter of priority, population, deal size, things that we might be able to guesstimate early on, that we can say, okay, well, since Justin's already tied up, I'll do this demo on my own, or this deal is of this value versus the one you're on. You know, can we work this out, right? And we bring the reps in and they discuss it and make those decisions. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be the guy going, well, this one's more important. Like, well, not to me, right?
Yeah.
So it's been largely about availability. I really think there's a lot I don't know about every single deal and about the typical day, right? Because there's a lot I miss. So I think as we grow, we're going to try to be involved more with discovery, demo at that point, be utilized a lot more, and hopefully say no a lot less often.
And I noticed you've put in a lot of activities on LinkedIn where you talk about hiring, and not necessarily that you are hiring, which from what I understand you are. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But you put a lot of information about like how to treat potential employees and like not ghosting them, which you would think it's like, yeah, obviously don't ghost them. But a lot of like, I've been ghosted several times. Luckily, I don't really care. But like, what are your thoughts about like the hiring process and what's wrong with it and how we can make it better, if there's anything wrong with it?
I don't know that there's necessarily anything wrong with it, and I say that meaning that, you know, everyone does it differently. Every organization does it a little bit differently. I will say that you know, this pandemic has taught me a lot about the organization. My wife was let go from her job after 17 years, excuse me, back in February, and just the process that she went through opened my eyes so much. And I would say that the problem with it, I guess, is we don't do it very often. We don't want to do it very often. We don't want to have to backfill someone. We don't want to, personally, to be doing a career shift, right? Unless the pain of doing nothing is worse than the pain of doing something, right?
Yeah.
So I just learned through her, basically, because of that experience, and I guess thanks to her old company, that I'm sensitive to that. That, you know, it's just as difficult for the employee, probably more difficult for the employee than it is for the employer. And I don't want to be one of those managers that sits back and just says, you know, I'll get to you when it's good for me. Right? They're an excellent resource for someone, even if it's not for me. So I want to give them the coaching or the information that would make the difference next time. That would say, okay, you were close in these things, or you know, these things you could improve on, and next time, you know, and everyone that applied has an opportunity to apply next time. next time I would look at this, or maybe I would read this book, or I would study this article, or I would go to WeTheSalesEngineers.com. There you go. But just yeah, they put a lot of time into that, and a lot of times for nothing, as far as pay or a job. But I want to give them something for their time.
Yeah. So I theorize that I see employment opportunities, whether you're trying to find a job or you're trying to hire someone, as a sales cycle. Like you're trying to close a sale.
Yeah.
And if I'm a salesperson and I lost the deal, I would like to know as early as possible. But if I'm winning the deal, I would like to close it as early as possible. And I think that goes for the salespeople, the company that's hiring, the hiring company, and the potential employee. As a manager, am I on track? Like, do you want to hire as fast as possible, or are you trying to take your time? What are the risks of either one? What are your thoughts around that?
So I think this is an interesting question, because I think about this a lot, and I actually went into this process. So for everyone that's not paying attention to the numbers, I had 4 SEs coming into this year, 4 SEs coming into October. I now have 11, 10. And so I've more than doubled the team size in that amount of time, and I have more openings. So at the very beginning of this, I was telling all the applicants, I'm trying to move quickly. I want to let you know if you're qualified or not qualified as soon as possible. But the problem with that was you'd start getting people that were kind of close in skill set. And I'm okay, well, and then I have specific products or product lines in which I want to align them to. So there might be specific background that they have that would lend themselves to one or the other. And so I'm kind of then doing, I guess I'll steal a term from a couple podcasts ago, a bake-off, essentially between 2 SE potentials, right? And it's not like I asked them to come back in and bake off, but it is something that would delay the process, because maybe someone's couldn't meet again within another couple of weeks. And so it's like, well, they were really close to this person in skill set, and I need to make a decision between the 2. And they kept kicking the can down the road, maybe for scheduling purposes or whatever it might be. And so then it turned into a sit and wait situation. But I tried to be as transparent to all the applicants as possible through the process. So yeah, I guess that you want to close as many new applicants as possible, if you use the sales terms, as quickly as possible. But understand that's a commitment. I have to make the right fit from a personality perspective, from a product fit perspective, the culture, of course, and in the background, their skill set, how much coaching or hand-holding might this person need versus someone else.
So I was interviewing someone who, we were supposed to jump on a call, and he had to postpone, and he pushed it out by almost a week. And I had to follow up a couple of times to get a date from him. And he did okay in the interview, but one of the things in the back of my mind is like, this guy is not trying to close the deal. I mean, it could be that they had some big issue where they just couldn't meet, but I don't know that. Like, he didn't explain why he had to push it out. As a hiring manager, is that a concern that you see, like, someone's pushing it out by a couple of weeks now? Are they even interested in this role? Because if I was interested in a role and I'm desperate for it, or I'm really excited about it, I would do something. I'll find half hour somewhere to actually meet. What do you see when, like, what does it mean to you if someone just keeps pushing it down the road?
Yeah, well, to be clear, I don't know that I've had anyone really continue to do that. So I guess give everyone a chance is kind of my first answer. I don't know that delaying it for any reason would be any indication on how good of a fit they might be or their level of interest. In fact, I would argue that their level of interest has no bearing on if they would be a good fit. Obviously, I need them to be enough interested to agree to an interview, but if I'm relatively happy, I mean, we say this a lot, and I think it's different right now. The Great Resignation, or whatever we're going to end up calling this in the history books, is in a different. We're in a different world now than we were. But yeah, before that, the best applicant was the one not looking, right? So finding a recruiter that could open a door and find someone. If they happen to be busy, I mean, yeah, of course, that must mean they're doing a heck of a job at where they're at now. And so that might be more enticing to me to continue hunting for them or getting them work at a time to schedule that call, because if they're buried in work or they have their head down, that must mean that they're doing something right.
Okay. Yeah, I was working with a university student, right, who you would think they're desperate, but yeah, if someone's a professional and you're trying to headhunt them, then it could mean different things, I guess, to different people.
Yeah, and also that's not global, right? I mean, I would take each as a one-off situation and kind of read that situation, but I wouldn't say it's immediately great or bad.
Yeah, it just in the back of my mind, I was like, when I was a university student trying to find a job,
Me too.
I was doing everything. Like I was staying up.
I'll take any interview. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you're growing. You're still growing. You doubled, and you're growing a little bit more. How are you mitigating risk of, like, one? You probably salespeople want more SEs, or I'm assuming. I've been in situations where an SE quits in my company, and the salesperson is bugging the SE manager, hire me someone today.
Yeah.
And so when you're growing, how do you find good quality candidates, and how do you make sure they're a good fit? And then how do you avoid the politics of being forced into hiring someone you don't think is the right fit? Three questions in one. That's
right. Well, you may have to remind me of the third one here at the end, but I'll give it
I'll
a
write
go.
it down so I don't forget.
There you go. By the way, I would never instruct my SEs to ask more than one question at a time.
I know.
No, but it is, they're all related. So I think, it's, I don't have an answer. I think we do our best. We've brought an outside recruiting firm in that's able to help our internal recruiter bring in more people in. Never in my history here at Civic Plus have we grown a team this quickly, this large and this quickly. So I think it's 4 years later than I wanted it. It's there's a lot of nuance to this, but we'd go through a hiring process of kind of, here's kind of the knockout questions, or here's the things that pre-qualify you as an applicant, right? And we get to that point. So the recruiter kind of brings them to us in this they've set the stage, they understand who Civic Plus is, they've probably been through a couple of scenarios. I do a quick screen call that just is get to know you. Tell me what the resume is not telling me. What's between the lines. What did you take away from those experiences that you think might fit here at this organization? And then we do a project. And I know you've talked with others about this. So we do a demo. We have online resources right now that anyone in the public can go see for our products. So we have a help center that's publicly facing. We've got resource documents that we can share. And so we asked them to do a demo. Currently, that demo is one of our 4 products. So it's super awkward for the applicant to come in and demo something they've never seen before to a bunch of people that have. But, I am open to considering other options as well if they need it to, something they're an expert on it. And I've told them, you can be wrong about every single feature and benefit of this product. It's not about really your knowledge of the product. It's really how you prep for this, how you deliver that. So through that process, I have hired probably, and I have management experience in my previous role, but I've hired some of the best applicants I've ever had as far as out of the gate, being prepped, being ready, and having the experience that I would want. So for anybody watching I've hired before, that's no reflection on you. It's just the level of quality that I'm getting is super high, and how I'm getting, the end results have been stellar.
Okay, that's good to hear. Where are you finding them? I'll come back to the third question that I asked, but I wanted to throw this in there. Where are you finding these candidates that fit your requirements?
Yeah. So when we kind of started this process, we said, well, where do we want to look, right? Like, do we want to look at solutions engineers or sales engineers that have many years of experience? Do we want them to be in the tech industry? Do we want them to have the background in our product? I've found the greatest success with our customers or the markets that we sell to. So local government. I found really great applicants from the local government space in communications or in director level roles. So, leading a department. But I've also found really great luck with folks that have a technical background that might have been a sales engineer in the past, or a sales consultant, or, one of the many titles that we call ourselves. And then also even folks with some sales experience. I think there's I know some of your questions are around that transition that I made. I don't think that every salesperson can do an SE job. But I think that that's a good applicant pool to look at.
Okay.
So hopefully that answers that. Oh, and then you
does.
asked me, what was the one?
I was thinking, like, I've been in situations where like a salesperson loses their SE, especially when they're paired like 1-to-1, and then the sales engineer manager is just pressured to hire almost anybody.
Yeah.
Like, just hire me somebody who may or may not be a good fit, may or may not be a good candidate, but like he impressed someone somewhere and now they're hired, and in a year they have to fire them. How do you avoid that politics of hiring for reasons other than merit?
It's like sales. And I tell my clients this, or my prospects, that you're spending X number of dollars on this, right? And you're going to implement this. And after I'm gone, you're going to live with this, right? So I think of it the same way, is that you don't want just anybody in here. It might be great the first couple months, but this person is going to be with us for the duration, right? And so I feel that pressure, but it's self-inflicted. I have great leaders here that are actually warning me not to fill these positions as quickly as they might be detecting from me, right? I might be saying, well, I could probably make this person work, or with a little bit of coaching, or this and that. So it is a balance there. There's only so many people that I could kind of take under my wing and grow. But yeah, I would say it's for me, it's been self-inflicted pressure, thinking about how quickly I want this team to be ramped up, how the turn of the year is in 11 days. And that's when all the new policies start and all the new protocols start. And I'm not going to be fully staffed. Well, I've certainly come to grips with that by now. If I haven't, I need to go meditate. But my point is, it is a balance to fill it quickly. And you kind of asked this question earlier. It is a balance about filling it quickly, but with the right people. And so, again, like closing deals, I got to just keep cold calling. I got to keep finding those opportunities, uncovering them, recruiting people. And through that large funnel then comes out, great applicants or great employees ultimately. So I don't know if I have a great answer, but it's something that I think about every single day.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's a good answer. I mean, there's always going to be that one person or two people that sneak in that seem great on paper, and now they're here. And they always hear the term hire slow and fire fast, but sometimes you don't have that luxury,
Right.
Especially in Canada, where you have to give them like a year notice, or like put them on a PIP and do a million things. So it might happen, and I guess
there's certainly internal politics. There's external forces that you land someone in your lap that you kind of have to deal with or learn to work with. So that's not without its, I'm not invincible of that, but it is, yeah, I've never felt like I've had someone land on my plate that I couldn't work with. So I've been lucky, I guess.
All right, so last question before we move on to the fire round. When you're choosing someone, are you choosing someone for coachability or experience?
If I had to choose one or the other, I would say coachability. But it is a balance. It is something that I would like, currently, since I'm going from 4 to 13 or 15, whatever the number is. There's only so many people that I could coach, right? There's only so many people I can start at ground zero, or, I don't have any better analogy, but not ground zero, but just
gorilla,
yeah, yes. The low experience that I need to coach in and have a lot of conversations about, how they're having conversations, how they're interacting with people, how they're asking questions, how they're delivering the solution, when to deliver the solution, when to hold on to your cards. all of that nuance that you kind of learn through the experience. There's only so many people that I could walk through that. So it is a balance again, but I ultimately, if it came down to it, it would be coachability.
Okay. Nice. I am curious, like, are you trying to mentor everybody, or are you providing mentors for, like, from other people within the team? Are you taking it all on yourself? How does that work?
10, 15 years ago, I would have taken it all on myself. I've learned as I've gotten older that I have to delegate. And I think I've learned a lot about how to delegate effectively. You can ask my team, but a lot of them are kind of mentoring those that are coming in, and they're motivated to, right? Like I said earlier, we've been understaffed. So you have one SE that supports dozens of AEs and account managers that would love to have more time, or at least have more of an impact, and they can do that with a backfill. So they're the experts in their product anyway. They're the experts in their customers, their buyers. And so I'm mentoring, I guess, from an oversight perspective, but largely my team has been delegated most folks. I was never backfilled when I became a manager. So spoiler alert, I'm still demoing. I've got a demo in like 2 hours. But also, not that I think I always want to be a player coach. I don't want to lose that experience, but I was never truly backfilled. So there's a couple I am personally training up that will help backfill me so I can be a little better leader.
Nice. All right. Okay. It is time to move on to the not so fire round.
I'm ready.
You've heard the show you mentioned before.
I took notes. Yeah, I am.
You took notes? Do I need to ask the questions?
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So what do you love about your current role?
Yeah. All of it. Boiling it down, I think we get, as an SE, we get to do the fun stuff, right? And I think of the SEs that get frustrated with AEs, your head's not on the line every time, right? And I know every organization's different, but ours is not on the line for every single deal. We don't have to wake up and wonder how much is in our pipeline and where our forecast is at, as far as personally owning that. So we get to come in and talk with the customer. We get to break the ice. We get to understand their problems, and then we get to deliver that solution. And is it always a great experience? No, but it's the funnest part. I really love learning what our clients are struggling with, and that's not from that perspective, but from the solution that we can bring. And I'll after the greatest demo, and this happened just a few months ago from a rep that typically kind of teed up a canned demo experience every single time. Oddly, their customers always had the same exact problems, and I always demoed the same exact solutions. But we had a unique case where it opened up, and we learned a lot more about where they were struggling, and then they brought in more people because they started getting excited about what we could do, and then we delivered that. And at the end, they're like, "Thank you so much," right? And we appreciate, this is going to be amazing, right? Before they even signed, this is going to be amazing. If you hear that in a call, you won. And we won the deal, and it just felt awesome to connect all those dots, right? And that, if you can't hear it in my voice, if I haven't already started speaking louder and more quickly, that's what pumps me up.
Speaking of, like, the way SEs and AEs, like, we always complain about AEs, it's easy to be fearless when you have nothing on the line.
Yes.
As SEs, we don't have as much on the line. Sometimes we do, like we have our ego, there's maybe commission, but AEs have their livelihood. If they're not doing well, they might get fired. Like, as SEs, if we're not doing well, we might get coached so we can do well. Sometimes AEs don't have that luxury. Like, it's just, we don't have time to train you. You have to be. So yeah, I like that you said that. All right. So what would you change about the role? If you love everything about it, how can you make it better?
Yeah. So I'm trying every day. I think it's the visibility. It's not, I've heard this a dozen times on your podcast, where no one really knows what an SE does, right? And from organization to organization, I would say that they don't know the differences between what SEs can do from different. So it's not standardized. It's not trained. It's not something that there's a bunch of books written about. It's relatively new, and therefore difficult for some organizations to say, well, every SE we hire brings in X more deals or works with X more percentage more clients or prospects, right? We don't have that data because it's a position that's kind of been a tool in a toolbox, right? Oh, this SE, or I have this problem, and this SE is going to come in and fix that and do this thing for me, and then I'm going to put the tool back. Well, it should be more of a partnership. It should be start to finish a relationship between the sales rep, the client, the prospect, and the SE to bring in, to understand the problem and deliver that perfect solution. And so, I guess, yeah, just visibility, I guess, in a nutshell. What is the SE role as a technology company? Do we have a standardized SE framework? And then because of that, more research will go in and understand what a new SE can bring every single time. It's not a cost center, it's a profit center, meaning that X number of SEs equal X amount of revenue. And we just don't have the visibility there. Yeah.
We make money, we don't cost money. Well, we cost money, but it's usually from the money we made. All right. Is there a book or resource you would recommend to either like for the people joining your team, other than we the SEs, because people already know about that since you're listening? What do you recommend that they read in order to prepare for their role as sales engineers?
Oh man, so I just ordered all of them. The John Kerr book, the Mastering Technical Sales. It's down here. I've got during our sales kickoff in January. I'm going to deliver all those to my team. Nice. So that's the number one answer. But I had written a couple down that in preparation for this. So that I think that's the given. And fortunately or unfortunately, I don't want to insult Mr. Kerr, but there's not a lot of resources out there. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of books that I can point them to and go, okay, use this and then read chapter 4 over here. And, and this is the vision that I have, right? Largely it's just John Kerr's book. And, but for me, mindset, there's a book I read several years ago. Dr. Carol Dweck is what I wrote down here. I think that's the right one that I've read, but it's about understanding not only how to shift to the right mindset, but to understand your kind of like resting mindset. What's your normal mindset? Identify that first, and then that'll help you understand how to like transition that to what you need it to be. And so I've always been one that's mind over matter in regards to my day to day. We all have bad days. But it's up to us to bring us out of those. Sometimes we want to wallow in that a little bit, but the mindset book has really helped me understand like where I'm at, why am I thinking this way, and then how can I pull myself out of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was working with someone who didn't get a job. They have a few in the funnel, didn't get a job, and they were just really pissed off. And my advice was like, you have today to mourn. Tomorrow you get back and get to work. And that worked out for that person, and they're on to the next thing. But it is sometimes you just have to take a day.
Yeah.
All right. Last question of the not so fire round. Is there a habit that you're working on today to improve in your personal or professional life? I feel like I need to change it on you. I don't know. You already know the question.
Am I the only one that comes prepared to a meeting? Am I at work right now? No, I think it's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked it, and it's I'm always working on something. You ask my wife, but as far as work, really even personal, less is more. I'm overly verbose. I'm surprised we're able to keep this as short as we have, because I do like to tell stories. So less is more. Feeding folks, from a customer's perspective, feed them what they want to eat. No more, no less. They don't need to know all the widgets and buttons and exciting things to me. They need to understand, how we can solve that problem for them. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to listen more, to add more value in the conversation by letting others participate. So yeah, that's what I'm working on now.
Nice. All right. Thank you so much for coming on, Justin. This has been amazing. If people want to reach out, connect with you, apply to a job, whatever, where would you recommend they go?
Well, LinkedIn is a great place. I'm active on there, so you can message me. My DMs are open, as people would say. So you can reach out to me there. Our career site, civicplus.com/careers. I am hiring. So there's 2 positions, solutions engineer 1 and solution engineer 2. But yeah, if you want to reach me and chat, I'm open. I've said that as much on my LinkedIn. I don't care if you are looking for a job or not. If you just want someone to chat with, I'm available.
That's how we got connected. I just wanted to chat. So
absolutely.
I appreciate your openness. You've proved it. It's not just something you say. So I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Justin. And let me finish with this. Is there any question you hoped or wished I was going to ask you today that I didn't?
No, man, this has been a really excellent interview. Yeah.
Awesome.
I appreciate the path that we go. It's fun. It's a fun journey to watch, and it's equally fun to be a part of. So I appreciate the time as well, Ramsey.
It's my pleasure. We'll talk soon.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you, Justin, for coming on, and thank you for listening. I'm curious to hear your experiences in terms of getting roles and interviewing for roles. And what are your thoughts? What did you think of my conversation with Justin? Was there anything that struck you positively or negatively? Let me know. Also, I do have a weekly newsletter. I call it the 411, which are basically 4 thoughts that pop into my mind the day of or the day before writing the newsletter, a tool that can be used as a sales engineer or anything else, and a quote. So 4 thoughts, 1 tool, 1 quote. It's a short email, 2-minute read. If you're interested and you want to see what it's about, I would highly recommend you sign up to the newsletter, and that's where I keep all of SE Nation up to date in terms of what we're doing as part of Reedy SEs. And there's a few things coming down the road, so I would love for you to be part of it, and I would love your feedback about it as well. So I will catch you next time. With that, this is me signing off.